The number 13 has always been considered unlucky. Most buildings don't have a 13th floor, and if they do, you'll never find it listed on the elevator panel. It's as if the floor doesn't exist, a superstition ingrained in the architectural design. But there's a reason for it, a dark, chilling reason that I discovered one night. I was working late at a downtown office complex, a building known for its impressive 50 floors. My office was on the 12th floor, and I had always found it odd how the elevator jumped from 12 to 14. That night, as I packed up my belongings and headed to the elevator, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The entire building was silent, save for the soft hum of the overhead lights. The elevator door slid open with a hiss, and I stepped in, pressing the button for the ground floor. As the doors closed, the lights inside the elevator flickered. I felt a sudden drop in my stomach, like the feeling you get when a roller coaster begins its descent. The digital display counting the floors glitched, and to my horror, it stopped at the number 13. The doors opened to reveal a dimly lit corridor, unlike any other floor in the building. The walls were peeling, revealing old rotting wood underneath. The air was thick with a musty scent, and I could hear faint whispers echoing down the hallway. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to explore. As I walked, I noticed that the doors to the rooms were all ajar. Peeking inside, I saw that each room was filled with old-fashioned furniture, covered in dust and cobwebs. It was as if the floor had been trapped in time. But the most unsettling thing was the people, or rather, the silhouettes of people. They moved in slow motion, their forms distorted and shadowy. Their whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices all speaking at once. Suddenly, one of the shadowy figures turned to face me, its eyes glowing a bright red. It spoke in a raspy voice. "Why have you come here?" I stammered, trying to find my words. I didn't mean to. The elevator brought me here." The figure let out a chilling laugh. "The elevator doesn't bring anyone here unless they are meant to see." Confused, I asked, "See what?" "The cursed," it replied. "Those of us trapped here, forever bound to this floor." As it spoke, more shadowy figures emerged from the rooms, surrounding me. I could feel their cold, lifeless hands reaching out, trying to pull me in. Panicking, I ran back to the elevator, frantically pressing the buttons to close the doors. As they slid shut, I could see the figures advancing, their red eyes glowing in the darkness. The elevator began its descent, and I let out a sigh of relief. When I reached the ground floor, I stumbled out, gasping for breath. The security guard, seeing my distress, rushed over. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern evident in his eyes. I nodded, trying to calm my racing heart. "I just had a strange experience," I managed to say. The guard's face turned pale. "You didn't go to the 13th floor, did you?" I nodded. "How did you know?" He looked around nervously, then leaned in, whispering, "That floor is cursed. Many years ago, a tragedy occurred there, and the souls of those who perished are trapped, forever doomed to wander. The building's owners tried to seal it off, removing any trace of its existence. But every so often, someone stumbles upon it, lured by the whispers of the past." Shaken, I thanked the guard and made my way out of the building. From that day on, I never worked late again, and I always took the stairs. But the memories of that night still haunt me, the chilling whispers, the shadowy figures, and the glowing red eyes that watched me from the darkness. Several months had passed since that eerie encounter. I had tried my best to push the memories to the back of my mind, but the shadows on the 13th floor continued to haunt my dreams. Every night, I would wake up drenched in sweat. The red eyes of the shadowy figures burned into my retinas. Things at work became increasingly difficult. I began to notice subtle changes in my surroundings. Every so often, I would catch a fleeting glimpse of a shadowy figure from the corner of my eye, only for it to vanish when I turned to look. Whispers would echo around the office, though no one else seemed to notice them. I was slowly unraveling, and my colleagues began to worry about my well-being. One evening, as the sun set and cast a deep orange hue over the city, I decided to confront my fears head-on. Armed with a flashlight and a deep breath, I made my way to the elevator and pressed the button for the ground floor. But once again, the elevator had other plans. The digital display glitched, and I felt that familiar drop in my stomach. The doors opened to the 13th floor, but it was different this time. The corridor was no longer dimly lit. Instead, it was engulfed in flames. The heat was unbearable, and the air was thick with smoke. The shadowy figures were no longer distorted silhouettes, but appeared more human, their faces contorted in pain and anguish. A woman stepped forward, her dress singed and her skin covered in burns. "You've returned," she said, her voice filled with sorrow. "Why am I here?" I demanded, my voice shaken. "You've been chosen," she replied, "chosen to free us from this eternal torment." "How?" I asked, desperation evident in my voice. "Find the truth," she whispered. "Uncover the tragedy that binds us to this floor and set our souls free." Determined to help, I began my search. Days turned into weeks and I delved deeper into the building's history. I discovered that the 13th floor had once been a lavish ballroom, hosting grand events and parties. But one night, a fire had broken out, trapping everyone inside. The building's owners, in an attempt to cover up the tragedy, had sealed off the floor and erased its existence from all records. Armed with this knowledge, I returned to the 13th floor. The flames still raged, but the shadowy figures appeared more at peace. I relayed what I had discovered, and as I spoke, the atmosphere in the room began to change. The flames grew more intense, and the room seemed to close in around me. The woman stepped closer, her red eyes piercing into mine. "You've uncovered the truth," she hissed, "but knowledge comes at a price." The shadowy figures began to circle around me, their whispers growing louder and more insistent. Panic surged through me as I tried to run back to the elevator, but the door remained shut. No matter how hard I pressed the button, it wouldn't budge. The woman's voice echoed in my ears. "You are one of us now." I felt a cold, numbing sensation envelop me. The world around me faded, and I found myself trapped in an endless loop of the 13th floor. The lavish ballroom, the raging fire, the anguished souls, all became my new reality. Days, weeks, years passed, but time had no meaning on the 13th floor. I became one of the shadowy figures, forever wandering the halls, forever trapped in the tragedy of that fateful night. On rare occasions, the elevator door would open, revealing unsuspecting souls who had been lured by the whispers of the past. And as they stepped out, I would join the others in welcoming them to their eternal prison. The 13th floor remains a mystery, a forbidden realm that few dare to enter, but for those who do, they are met with the haunting reality of souls forever bound by tragedy, including mine. Thank you for listening to Why Don't Elevators Have a 13th Floor? If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like. And if you enjoy hearing stories from me, please subscribe and become a resident of Hill Street and let me know how I'm doing in the comments. And I hope all of you have a fantastic night.